You're listening to the Better Two podcast with M.Needom. Hi gang, Donna here. Thank you for tuning into the Better Two podcast. Today's show, I talked to CerVon Campbell. CerVon was a stand-up comedian. He kind of got out of that right before the pandemic struck, but he has been working on music. In fact, his latest collaboration is with John Oates from, yes, Daryl Hall and John Oates, because when I was looking through his Spotify, I saw CerVon Campbell and John Oates, and I'm like, John Oates? And he's like, yes, it is that John Oates. CerVon's song D&D, which is one of the collaborations he did, is actually a really good song, and I recommend you checking out on Spotify. He has quite a few songs that are good. Some of the ones that resonated with me were Again and Cedar Falls, How You Doing? But the reason we talked today, besides the songs, of course, we talked about the fact that he had some issues with his ex-girlfriends. And those issues ended up leading him to some very dark thoughts, trying substance abuse, substances that he ended up abusing, and then realizing that he needed to get his life in order and get back on track. And so what he did was he realized, I can't keep going like this. And he explains more. We also talk about his work with the Homeless Foundation that he is trying to start and build apartments for, with the help of his mother. And we talk about his collaboration, and we talk about life. So I think it's a very fascinating podcast. And yes, we kind of go all over the place, including talking about manners. In fact, we came up with a superhero about manners. Yeah, we were being silly. But anyway, it was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Hi, CerVon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. So you are not just a musician, you're also a stand-up comic, correct?
Yes, man. Yes. I
we'll,
gotta start with the man. Yes.
we'll have this little conversation we had a minute ago. You see, I grew up in New Orleans, and you are in South Carolina, correct?
Yes. I
Yes.
gotta focus it.
And you see down there, you kind of are taught to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, and ma'am and sir. And if you dare say it to your parents, yeah, you're going to get in trouble. So it is something that is kind of taught to us, and it takes a long time to get out of it. So
Yeah, it sounds so rude without it. I feel bad every time.
you want to know something though? When I was working in insurance, I actually was on the phone with somebody, and I called her a ma'am. I said, yes, ma'am. And I'm like, ma'am. And she goes, I am not a ma'am. Don't talk condescending to me. And I was just kind of taken aback, because we were always taught that this was about manners. And this person's thinking I'm being condescending because I'm calling her a ma'am. I'm just like, okay.
I get really nervous with it because I am one of those people where I anything I do, I don't want to offend or be rude to anybody. And with a lot of changes now, especially me being in the South, I was kind of slow to a lot of stuff. So my sister, she is trans and she has a lot of friends that are, and if I say ma'am or something like that, and I have somebody say, I'm not a ma'am, I'm instantly froze. I'm terrified. I don't know what to do because I don't want to offend anybody. It is a learning curve. And if I could just not say it, I definitely would.
It like I said, it's a very awkward moment. And I admit that sometimes, especially if I get hoarse, my voice goes deeper. And I've had people call the house, and they're like, are you the man of the house? And I'm like, no.
I get that all the time. If I shave this off, I
Uh-huh.
get confused for a girl all the time.
See, I mean, it's a very interesting time that we live in, and I guess we don't, certain things like ma'am and sir, I guess are going to eventually go bye bye. So, not that we've
Yeah.
went way off topic, but it's
I'm
something.
sorry.
It's something that I don't think, if it's like growing up in down south, we said y'all, and I had a
Mhm.
friend. I think I was just out of high school. I had a friend who was originally from Michigan, and she was like, you guys. And I'm like, what?
Ew.
You guys? What is that? And So now that I've lived in Illinois for 27 years, y'all is no longer part of my dialect. It's you guys.
When I hear certain phrases like that, it just instantly turns to ill. Like if somebody asks for a soda and they say, "Can I get a pop?" It's it's just like what?
Do you know that in the late 80s, I actually, not that you knew this, but in the late 80s, I worked for a telemarketing firm, and they actually, a soda company actually paid people to call around to companies to see how, if it was soda, pop, or a soft drink. They did a survey, a telemarketing survey. They actually paid people to figure this out. And guess what? They still haven't figured it out. So,
I feel like people be so bored, and people with money just, hey, let's see what people say. They just
yeah,
find something to do.
yeah, yeah. So, as we've gone off into this little random conversation, which everybody's like, okay, yeah, all right. So, you basically, so as far as your stand-up, let's talk about your stand-up for a minute. I know we're going to focus mainly on your music, and I have listened to some of
Okay.
your tracks on Spotify, but tell me a little bit about your stand-up. I mean, is that something new that you've gotten into to maybe help with depression and stuff, or is that just something you've always been naturally funny?
I like to think that I'm funny. I started off with stand up first, and I was doing stand up way before I got into music, before I thought about doing music, and I felt like it was a good outlet to kind of like be around, positivity a lot because for one, the stand up community, they're like, it's a brotherhood. They lock in with you from the moment you come in. So it's really friendly and everybody's opening. And having like, I always like question it because yeah, I've had problems with depression and stuff like that, but I've never really had like a hard life. So I would feel down and I didn't really have an explanation for why, but like having people laughing around me or making people laugh, it just kind of boosted me. It was a great distraction. So I stayed in stand up for a long time. And then I had right before COVID, I kind of slowed down with it and kind of focused on music and switched back over.
Actually, that most likely was a good thing because I mean, with COVID, everything got shut down.
I got out right at the best time possible.
Because otherwise, you'd be doing stand-up via Zoom, and I'm not sure how well that works.
Yeah, if you seen the Bo Burnham special, I feel like it would be so awkward trying to tell jokes to a phone. Like I understand how people do TikToks and stuff like that. I just cannot do it.
I understand because I mean, when I'm doing, talking to you, it's fine. When I have to do my lead in and my outros, sometimes it's awkward because it's like there's not that flow. And even TikTok, you get on there, it's like, okay, I might as well just go into a room and just scream because I don't know if anybody's going to hear it, and I'm talking to myself, so it's awkward. So unless you're comfortable just putting it out there, it's a little
People
tense.
that are just that comfortable with themselves that just can do stuff like that, they scare me. Those people are invincible.
Though, are they invincible or are they invincible right then and there? And if you put them in a real life situation, it may not be the case.
You know what? I hope so because we need some kind of kryptonite for these people because I'm my own worst critic and people who be like, I don't care what anybody thinks of me and I can just do that. I couldn't imagine being that way at all.
Well, and I'm going to, you mentioned something that is very, very key here. And a lot of creative people have that issue, and that's being their own worst critic. Is
hmm
that something that was it because of the way you were raised, you think, or is it just something natural for you? I mean, did people kind of chastise you in school and saying, well, that's not good enough? Or is this just something that it's innate to you?
Um, she gets mad at me for doing this, but it's just her character. My mom is such a she's a level-headed person.
Mm-hmm.
So you could become like I could become president. I could win a Grammy and she'll just be like, nice. So I can never tell like, hey, are you satisfied with this action? I need some validation. And she'll just, I gotta go to work. So I can never tell. And then with myself and like me making music, I just started getting to the point where I'm making the music I want to make. So with other people, like I always needed like a group of people, like a survey. If I could be a telemarketer and just hey, do you guys like my music? I need at least 8 out of 10 of you to like it. If more, then I can't use it. I'm done with it. So yeah, I, I hate to put it on her, but it might have came from her. I have to blame her for it.
No, I mean, I completely understand because I think we all at a certain point look for approval from our parents, whether it's a single parent or, both parents. I remember being in my 30s, and because my parents divorced when I was young. And I remember going to my dad at 30. We were sitting down, waiting for somebody at a bar. And I'm sitting there talking to him. I'm like, so dad, are you proud of me? And it was the weirdest answer because my mom was always like, I need good grades. I need this. I need that. I need that. And I was like, okay. And I asked him, I said, so are you proud of me? He looked at me and goes, what does it matter? And there was something disturbing and freeing all in the same moment
Yeah,
because isn't that part of the whole thing? You're supposed to make your parents proud. Isn't that like put on us all the time that we're supposed to make our parents proud? We're supposed to level up to our parents' expectations. And here he is going, what's it matter? And I'm like, but aren't you worried I'm going to fall flat on my face one day? He goes, so what? If you do, you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going.
see, it's crazy because I'm on like right in the middle of that, where
Mhm.
it's like my mom. I'm always cracking jokes to her. I'm always trying to make her laugh because I always need some kind of validation from her, which is like crazy toxic looking at like relationship wise. But like I just always need her validation. But like my dad, I surpassed him so much to the point where we can't talk to each other anymore.
Oh, wow.
Like he
Okay.
will not. I have not talked to my dad. Like I've seen my dad like a ton of times. I've seen him like a few months ago, but we have not spoke in like going on 5 or 6 years now.
My dad actually is now deaf. So the interesting thing about that is he didn't always want to hear his family. He didn't always want to hear what his wife or his kid had to say or his kids. And now he can't. He can't hear. So I thought, well, that's kind of the universe's way of saying you should have been listening.
That's one of those jokes. That's something I would say, and then I would feel like I shouldn't have said that, but like
Yeah.
I wanted to say it.
Yeah.
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 I'm sorry. I hate that. Like my dad, my dad his whole life chased music. He wanted it more than anything else. He isolated himself. Like he would be in relationships, he'll do whatever. And but music was his main thing. That's all he wanted to do. So he just always been like a live band guy. It never just blew up for him. And I just got like really, I feel like it was the leftover positive energy I had because I wanted to be a preacher first. And then I just was like, hey, I've been like praying and I've been doing all this stuff. I feel this kind of way. I'm gonna make a song and I'm gonna put it out. The song randomly did well, and then I just took that momentum and kept going. So it worked for me. And I think it just like bothered him to the point where we just don't talk.
Isn't that
So like
hard? I mean, was he jealous of you? I mean, do you think that's what it is?
I feel like it's really weird, but like I think so, kind of like I remember he was doing a show and he asked me if I would come and help out and promote it and stuff like that. And it was felt like one of those things where it's like, you haven't really helped out up until this point. So like, let's leave that there. Like, music and stuff is at the door. When we come in here, then we can talk as, we're father and son, we're cool. And I do that with a lot of other my siblings and friends and people, because it's just like, hey, if you're not really helping on this side, then let's just leave it alone. Like, let's not talk about it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So after that with him, we just never talked. Last time I talked to him was at my graduation party in 2016.
Wow. I mean, my mom growing up, I had some of that with her because she was 1 year away from getting her dance teaching degree. And
Hmm.
when I was little, I took ballet and I loved it. And when I got a little older, I wanted to take dance again. And she's like, no, you can't. You can't take dancing. And I'm like, okay. And as I tried to pursue this more, she actually said to me, well, you don't have any rhythm. Now, there's something funny with that statement. I play bass guitar. So how can I play bass guitar if I don't have rhythm? Please tell me. Please tell me. But it wasn't so much. And I went to, as I turned into an adult, I did go take dance classes. And I had somebody tell me I have natural rhythm. So this was all about her jealousy. It wasn't about, some parents want to live vicariously through their kids.
Uh-huh.
She was not one of those parents, kind of like your dad.
I and even to this day, like recently or last year, I had a run-in with John Oates of Hall and Oates, and I didn't think it was the real him, so I just shot my shot like, hey, let's do a song together. And then we did a song together. We ended up working together. We talked every day, all the time. We was on FaceTime together. He did an interview talking about me, and that was just like it for me. Like that was the greatest thing. I kept resharing the clip and stuff like that, and I was showing my mom, and I was getting like a tweak of like, hey, this is really cool. Like my mom started supporting it more, and she sent it to him, and he instantly changed the subject. And that's when I like really noticed it. Like that's when I really saw it like, oh, it's because of music. But like I just always wondered because after my graduation, I graduated early. So after my graduation was around like Father's Day or something like that. Or it was either Father's Day or his birthday. I messaged him and he didn't say nothing. So I didn't think nothing of it. At that point I was like working, like I was traveling a lot and like doing work like that. So whichever the other one was, it was like either his birthday or Father's Day next. And I messaged him again and he left me on red. And right after he was on the phone with my brother. So I'm like, well, okay, that's weird. But I just kind of like let it go. And my dad has other kids other than me and my brother with my mom. So all of them, they all reach out to me and they're always like trying to talk to me and stuff. And they'll talk about, oh, we did this with dad, we did this with dad. And I'm like, he doesn't talk to me. He hasn't hit me up. And it's just crazy that like the short few, like me and you, like we have these people that we just look to as such a high caliber. Like we want them to just appreciate the thing that we're taking after them. That's the one thing they can't give up.
Right.
It's crazy. I don't know. I'm not a parent, so I can't put myself in that position, but it's always something I think about now with that relationship. If my son right out, goes and wins a Grammy and does all this stuff that I can't do, would I be proud or would I be jealous? It's a crazy little line right there.
But the one thing this is what I'm going to say, because I got to be a parent briefly. I got to be a step parent. So I had 4 years of being a mom. And my perspective about life during those 4 years was totally different than me as a single person. So I think when it comes to that point in time for you, if it does, your perspective will fit the way it needs to because you've learned this lesson from your father. That's the one thing, if you really pay attention in life, you learn these lessons that are taught to you by outside forces, i.e. your father, my mother, and you try to make the better choices as a parent. Sometimes I think being a parent in a later part of your life is a better thing than being a parent young, because you have a little bit more of a handle on the idiosyncrasies that you don't want to repeat in your life.
Mm.
So
That's what I was told. I was told, um, I had I'm running like I have two specific exes that like really flipped pages for me, like brought on chapters in my life, and they really changed the way I do music. They really changed the way I live my day-to-day life, even after the relationship. And the first one, the big thing with it was when I started feeling like, okay, I have depression. She was one of those, like, she's a heavy Christian. She said, no, that's the devil. These are just demons you have. There's something wrong with you right now. So I kept on having this problem where it's just like, man, I'm an awful person, hating myself. And that's still with me now. So with her, at the end of our relationship, she got pregnant and she got pregnant with triplets. So I sold the rights to my music. I threw everything away. I'm like, this is what I want. I want this. I want this so bad. I got a job, and I had just kind of sort of. I was in school, but like I was able to get a teaching job that I wanted. So I took that job. I got a car, like a bigger car. Like I was really focused and dialed in. Like this is gonna happen. Got an engagement ring. I'm like, this is gonna happen. I prayed about it. I called my preacher. Hey, can you pray with me? And the next day after he prayed with me and her kind of had like an off day. She wasn't feeling good. I wasn't really in a good mood. So we didn't talk a whole lot. The next day, she went and got an abortion and we never talked again.
sorry.
So it's just like, No, I mean, it's fine now. It's just one of those things where it's like that perspective had me just like going crazy because it was like I really wanted to be a dad. I really wanted this in my life. And this guy told me, get all your living out of the way before you say you want to be a parent.
Yeah,
Because once you take on that responsibility, you're not fighting for yourself anymore.
right.
And I feel like that's one thing that my dad just didn't pick up. Because after he had his kids and he did everything, he was just like, nah, I still want to do music. I remember for back to school, he said he was gonna take me shopping, and he took me to a Ross and told me, at first he told me he was gonna get me like all this, he was gonna do this, he was gonna do that. But he took me to a Ross and told me I can get two outfits. And I mean, as a kid, I'm like, hey, this is cool. I get to spend time with my dad. I'm getting clothes, yada yada. And I remember how much he spent on those two outfits. Then we went to Guitar Center, and he dropped like hundreds of dollars because his band was gonna perform that week.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm not knocking him for it. It's just like it showed me a lot. It showed me some like the way I felt from that situation. I don't want to make somebody else feel that way. That's what I said about these two exes I had. I know how I felt in situations, and I don't want to make nobody feel that way. So in a relationship I'm in now, me and her both have mental health problems, and I know how being with somebody who didn't take mental health seriously made me feel. So in my relationship now, I'm not gonna shut any of her things down. If she feels some kind of way, then I understand she is feeling it, and I may not understand that, but I have to still be there and support that.
Funny.
So I just think that's. Oh, go ahead. I'm
No, I
sorry.
was gonna say,
I'm
go
talking a
ahead.
lot.
No, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was like, I just see these perspectives and I just know like, okay, I felt so small when I saw like me in fifth grade getting new clothes was such a big deal, but like it was nothing to him. It was just like, I gotta go ahead and do this. And then later I'm gonna go do what I actually want to do. Feeling like second place. I know if I have a kid, feeling like first place is a really big deal. So I'm not gonna put nobody in second place. So I just think that that's just a mindset that he taught me even without trying.
And I think it's a valuable lesson. I mean, a lot of the times now, especially now when people are so stressed and, you know, there's a huge age gap between you and I, but I mean, for me, you sometimes had the stay at home mom, and then sometimes you didn't. And sometimes you were a latchkey kid, and sometimes you weren't. But everything wasn't going on so quickly. You didn't have all the distractions that are there today. And
Hmm.
that being said, though, I mean, I had a moment with my dad. He would pick me up. This was after they split. My dad was, if I saw my dad drink when they were together, it was a very rare thing. And after they split and divorced, he drank a lot. He would have these parties. He would have friends over, and he'd have these parties. And he was with a lady, and once they got together, that's when all this started, especially when they moved out to Slidell. And I remember if I wasn't going with my cousins to go roller skating, or we weren't at my grandmother's house, so really I'm not spending any time with him. I'm spending time
Hmm.
with everybody else, because if I was at my cousin's house, I'm playing Star Wars. And if I'm at my grandma's house, I'm playing the Atari in the back bedroom. Um, but when we would go to his house and he was having these parties, I remember asking him, I'm like, Dad, can we not do this? Because we used to, before she came along, we would sit there and go to the movie. We would do other things together. And then when I asked him, I said, Dad, can we just spend some time alone? And I remember him getting mad at me. And he was on call at the fire department. He was at the firehouse at the time when I made this call. And he's like, what's the matter? Don't like my friends? And I remember, kind of like you were saying about being frozen, just like I was mortified that he yelled at me because of this. I mean, and it may not have been yelling, but it was the tone. It was the harsh tone
Hmm.
of how dare you, without saying how dare you. And I was just like, it's not that I don't like your friends. It's just I want to spend some time alone. Well, we'll see. Never happened. Never happened. We would have these parties again, and I'd just be like, great. So, for me, it was a lesson. You talk about lessons. It's like, because my grandfather was an alcoholic at times, and my dad was at times, and I had gone to bars when I was little. I didn't have that need to have a drink. I didn't want to
Hmm.
drink. I took my mother's vice, which was overeating at times. or stress eating. So we each pick up something from our parents, whether we want to admit it or not. It's just a matter of how do we grab a hold of it, recognize it, and then deal with it. And, I'm going to say something. You said mental health issues. If somebody tells me they don't have a mental health issue, I'm going to call them a liar, because everybody's got something. I don't care how you say it. Everybody's got something, whether it's
My mom
anxiety.
got to experience it recently because my mom, she said it was like her first one. She said she had an anxiety attack, and the way she described it, I was like, oh yeah, that's me like every other hour. And she was like, well, Jesus, like just like, seeing it in her. But like I I see people's vices. So now like I kind of just force myself to go through stuff. Like I know that if I'm feeling down, that I'm gonna try to drink or I'm gonna try to do anything or whatever. And it's probably a bad decision, or even if it's just something simple, I force myself to like I don't drink no more. I might drink socially if my girlfriend like forces me into it, like, hey, we have to take this shot. Then like, okay, I might not even fully do it. And like, she smokes weed and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm not knocking, it's just I will not allow myself to, because I feel like a lot of the problems that I have trauma wise and like just mental health wise, I brought onto myself. So I'm not trying to get an escape from it. I'm trying to like force heal myself, like just force my way through it, rip the band-aid. Hey, I'm dealing with it and I'm gonna get over it. So like with alcohol and stuff like that, I completely doubt out. I just can't do it. Don't want to numb it.
Don't you, do you sometimes channel when you're going through something down to lyrics?
hmm And I say this all the time. This is why I tell people like I don't personally like my music because I'm reliving stuff. Because I really, each one of my songs is a specific moment, and like if I have to sing it or listen to it, then I'm reliving it. So like sometimes it's okay, but for the majority of the time, like I have a song Miss Universe or the newest song I just did with John D&D. Those were like really hard times where I didn't have no escape but to start writing. So it's kind of like, okay, we're gonna have fun because we're playing it for other people, but deep down it's like, turn this off.
That's the thing. And I've had this conversation with a couple of people. It's like there's been times in the last year, and I lost somebody really close, my husband, but there was times when I would sit here when I started doing the podcast, and I'm like on the podcast and I'm all smiles and everything and having a good time. And it was around the 1 year anniversary, and I'd get offline and I'd just be in tears. And that's the thing. I
It's
mean, we
really hard to
all
fight through it.
do it.
I said it's really hard to fight through it.
Hmm. But you have to. It's like, that, dare I say, you have a public persona at a certain point,
Mhm.
and you have to keep that happy face on. You're not supposed to break, which goes back to, the Britney Spears thing. And everybody,
Mhm.
everybody talks about the Free Britney movement, and I'm glad that that's working out. I am. But what about everybody that was so after her when she was having her breakdown? When people were following her like crazy? How does any
Makes
celebrity,
you feel bad.
yeah, any celebrity
You see
that,
the last pictures of Chadwick Boseman, the
mhm,
last few months of him when he was looking sick and everybody was making jokes. And at that time, I felt weird. Chadwick Boseman is from like where I'm from. Like I met him one time, and I swear that was like one of the best moments of my life. So it's always like, and it's weird because it wasn't ever one of those things like the obvious thing people go to, like, oh, he's a black guy, he's from here, this, that, and this. It wasn't that. Everybody has talked about it, but it seemed like one of those fake things, like fake nice things that people say. He just had this thing about him that like, and it sounds so corny, but if he was talking to you, he's talking to you and he's actually there in that moment. So I did a speech and debate and he did too. And his school was that we asked for like volunteers to judge and he volunteered to be one of the judges. And at that time, I think it was around 42 or right before 42. It's right in there, but he's still established as an actor. So meeting him, it was just like, oh, cool, this is a famous guy. He's from here. And that's when it was like, the obvious stuff. I'm like, okay, I can look up to this guy. And then I talked to him and he was just saying like, I'm just doing this. Like I seen something I liked and I just kept on doing it. He just gave like this basic advice that every celebrity gives, but it was just like I felt seen, and being seen by somebody that high up is just like really empowering. So like seeing him like that, I really felt bad. I don't know. It's just it's one of the weird things. Like people don't look at the bigger picture. With Brittany, I wasn't like old enough to really understand what was going on, but like I grew up with like people making the jokes, and I
Yeah.
watched South Park, and South Park did not take it easy on her at all.
Oh,
Nobody took it easy on her.
no,
So I really feel for her.
South Park ticket was very hard on several people. Several people.
They are full blast. They do not care.
No, Oprah. I will say the Oprah episode, and if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I'll talk to you about it off air. But when they went after Oprah one time, that was pretty bad and pretty tacky. But anyway, because my husband loves South Park. But the whole point back to Brittany is everybody was hammering her, and here she is. I mean, she's got two small kids, and they, dare I say, they all wanted a piece of her. And then now, since I look at celebrity kind of like this. They build you up, they put you on a tower. And I had the same thing happen when I when I met my first husband. His in-laws were like, I prayed to God that he would meet somebody, and you're it. Okay. And then a month later, I meet his kids, and they kind of move, they start moving in with us because certain things happen. And his mom and his grandparents are all like, you were just the best thing that's ever happened to them, da 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 da. So all of a sudden I went from being single to having someone live with me to being a mom, and I'm on this pedestal. And I'm not very comfortable being on this pedestal. So what do I do? And how do I handle that? And that's kind of how celebrity is. You put people on these pedestals, and they're just human beings. They have illness, they have mental illness. Sometimes they can crack because of the pressure of, how do you handle success? I mean, that was a conversation I had yesterday, is what does success look like? Why does success, what happens when you reach that pinnacle? And people are now, you don't have a moment's peace. How do you handle that? And how do you not have a breakdown? So
it's so crazy that that's one of the things that so many people chase, but it's something that not a lot of people can really handle.
No, and
like,
then
it's something I'm chasing and I can't handle.
Well, I mean, you've performed live, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you get off that stage, there is that adrenaline rush still, because especially if you've had the applause and you've had the people come up to you and congratulate you after the show, and they talk to you after the show, you are running on that high, that adrenaline high of, dare I say, praise.
Well, I in those moments, it feels really good. Yeah, I'm not down that at all. It really feels good, but I have to create like a character being out there, because I'm not like great with people. I'm not really good with, especially at taking compliments or anything like that. I just feel like they're lying to me for some reason. So like coming on stage, it feels really good. And then when people are talking to me, I don't want to be this meek guy, and I have to like, hey, well, thank you for coming out. I have to put that on, and I mean, it balances you out. So that adrenaline is put into like acting. So I'm right there in the middle. I don't think I want these things. Like my biggest goal in my career is to be the host and musical guest on SNL. That's my biggest thing. That's all that I want.
Nice.
But like getting up there, like trying to be this guy, like getting a bunch of followers and listeners, it's really freaky. I have these like freaky moments. Like, I don't know. It's wild. I really don't think I can handle it, but maybe one day.
Maybe. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you if you know these things about yourself, you're capable of working on them to make yourself a better person. If it's the people that are not aware of these things that dive in and then get lost, they don't understand. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and she was basically explaining her entourage, and it's just like, how do you have so many people? I mean, I didn't ask her, but it makes you question if, how good is life if you have to be so ensconced around so many different people? If
I do not have, my last tour, it was just me and my mom. Like, that's what it was. Like, I didn't have like anybody with me. At one point, at certain points, I needed security because I got jumped, I got robbed like a few times out trying to tour by myself. but like the majority of the time, it was just me and my mom. I even like now when I did a few shows in Nashville recently, me, my girlfriend, and my mom. I am so compact. Entourage. I'm jealous. I really am.
I mean, I was just amazed because it's like, I've talked to several different artists, and it's like, we're discussing about how, with if you get a record contract, how you hear actors get, the $20 million movie, or the book author gets this X number of, for a book deal. But then you got to sit there and go, okay, so how much is everybody else getting paid?
Mm.
I mean, I don't think everybody looks at that. You have to look at, so for you, if you go on tour, you have 3 people to pay, yourself and then the 2 other people. But when you're talking a big tour, you have lighting crew and everybody else. So, there's this massive expenditure. So now I'm curious, because when I went through your Spotify, I did see John Oates, and I was like, is this really John Oates? And now you're telling me, yes, it really is John Oates from Daryl Hall and John Oates. So how did that all come about?
We were both on the same podcast. He was on the week before I was going to be on, and I saw that he was on there, and a page commented, like it was a bunch of pages commenting under it, and I saw one that said whatever the name. It's his actual Instagram account. I thought it was a fan page, so I saw they looked at my story. So I went and like I looked at their story, like clicking on to see who they were. So then I was on there and I had liked a couple pictures because he has really good photo shoots, and he had a bunch of stuff he was doing with cars and stuff. So I was looking through pictures, and he came back to my page and liked some stuff and commented some stuff. And then I looked, I was like, yo, I think this is the real like account. So he commented on under one of my songs and said that he liked it. And I was like, if you like it so much, we should do a song together.
Nice.
I didn't think it was the real him, and I was trying to call his bluff. So he was like, okay. And he emailed me his number. So I called it, and it was him. And I was like,
wow.
oh, okay.
Nice.
So yeah, I have annoyed that man ever since that day. Like I call, I text, I am always bothering him.
Nice. You should tell him to be on my podcast.
I will. He's so cool. He will do it too. He will definitely do it. He's the sweetest person.
I did actually see him. I think he performed at Live Aid. And I was there, so I did see them, and yeah, I have a story about their song Family Man. Going back to my parents being divorced, and yeah, my dad at this point has the girlfriend, and that song becomes popular, and it's like anytime I'm in the car with my dad, I crank that song up just to annoy him. I'm a family man, leave me alone. It's just like, I don't think my dad ever got it, but for some reason the kid in me there was some little revenge there.
I always want to ask him about like those kind of things, because like he did We Are the World and all those like really big moments, and I'll be wanting to ask him, but I try not to fan out hard talking to him because I know how annoying I already am. Because I'm always asking like music side of things questions, because he has really changed my whole perspective on music. So, like I'm asking these little questions, and then when I want to ask these big questions like about touring and stuff like that, I feel so like a fan and weird. But then when he opens up and he tells you these stories, it's just like, wow.
Well, this is what I'm going to say. There's a guest that I interviewed at the end of this season. By the time this airs, it'll be the end of last season. I just interviewed him yesterday, and his name's Merchant. And he actually did a collaboration with, and the guy also played bass and helped produce the record, John Taylor from Duran Duran. So he actually worked with him, and he's kind of mentored him. So it's like, I know from talking with him that it's like, he respects him. And if John Oates was willing to respect your music and want to collaborate with you, then he's not going to think you're a fan. And I think, I'm going to say this, he's going to look at you as a peer. If he was willing to work with you, you're his peer. So get out of your head.
I'm always trying to. When we went out, Oh, my girlfriend saved it so bad because we were leaving. We just me and him did a live like a Reddit live performance, and it went really well. Everything was good, and I'm like, okay, we need to hurry up and leave because he, not him, but the producer we recorded with last time picked on me, like made a joke about like me bringing my mom. So at this point, my like the three of us are in Nashville, and my mom dropped me and my girlfriend off, and it's kind of like I could have went by myself, but we
Mhm.
have family in Tennessee, so we made it a whole thing. So we got dropped off, and it's me and my girlfriend. We're leaving out, and I'm like, we need to hurry up and leave so they don't see us getting in the car with my mom. So like we walk to this restaurant like down the street, and we're waiting on her, and she's like, I'm okay, okay, I'm about to pull up. And then John and this guy, Trap, I cannot never think of his first name. They came walking, and then they waved at us, and they waved, and Kay looked at them. I'm like, shh, just don't move, don't move, don't move, don't say nothing. And John was like, hey, y'all want to come eat? And I'm like, oh God. So I'm trying to get my mom on the phone, like, come in an hour, give me like 2 hours. But she's pulling up. So now it's like, hey, can I bring my mom in? Is that okay? And he was like, yeah, sure. So my mom's walking in, and I'm like, don't embarrass me. I'm trying to give her this pep talk before we sit down. And all of us sit down, and I'm so awkward. Like, I'm sitting up straight. I'm trying to be professional. I don't want to eat my food sloppy. I am zoned in right now. And my mom, she has it in her head. She's not trying to embarrass me. She's on Facebook. We are dialed in. And Kay, she just kept the conversation going. She kept it. She was just on it. She saved it. Because otherwise, it would have been a completely awkward dinner. But it turned out great.
So, you know, do you get, I mean, do you feel you feel your mom's a support, but then I guess at times like that, it's like you feel your mom might embarrass you just a scotch.
I feel like she would embarrass me by questions or something like that because she also does. She's supportive in the wrong time. So like we're there and we're talking, and I was wearing my logo, like, so whatever this shirt is I'm wearing now. I was wearing my logo, and we were talking, and my mom was like, "Did you tell him about your logo? Did you bring him a shirt? Did you get him a shirt?" And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, you make shirts?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I always feel weird because I call him Mr. John. Like I am, I bring myself down, and yeah, it was embarrassing.
Just, how do I say this? I think he looks at you as a peer, just relax. And most likely he has a chuckle about the way Mr. John, he may have a chuckle or two about that. He might. And it's okay.
I'm working on it.
It's okay. It's the ma'am thing. It's the I treat my peers with, I treat the elders with respect, you know.
That's the one thing I told him. I said, I'm like, we were talking. The first time he told me I didn't have to call him Mr. He did accept it now, but the first time we met in person and I called him, he said, "And you don't have to call me Mr. John." And I told him, I'm not calling you John. You are way older than me. I am not calling you like by your first name. It's just not happening. You're not getting me into hell. It's just not happening.
Well, I mean, I understand because when I met my stepfather the first time, it was Mr. Shelley. So I totally get it. And, when my stepkids came to live with us, it was like, so what are they going to call you? I said, I don't want to be Miss Dawn. I don't want to be Miss Donna. I don't want any of that. So, you know, call me Donna
I
Michelle.
call my girlfriend ma'am. Like when she says something, I'm like, yes, ma'am. Like, everybody gets it. No one is safe from these manners.
I'm on a mission with manners. That's
I
me.
am. I am.
So maybe you could be nicknamed Manor Man.
I'll take it. That sounds like the friendliest superhero out there that is actually cleaning the city. That sounds like his job. I will take it.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Manor Man. Yeah,
He doesn't even have a superhero outfit. He just has on a business casual suit.
exactly, exactly. And if there's a puddle, he'll take his jacket off and let's. There's a whole thing what you can do with it.
Yeah, he could just smolder his serious moment as him looking in the camera and let you know chivalry isn't dead. Like
Yes.
I'm sold in it. I'm sold. We like really went off topic because it was like a would you rather, like the was it worth it question, we completely like went off from it.
Here's the thing, though. This is what I have to say. This podcast, while we always have a topic, it's more
Hmm.
about sitting down having a conversation. That's really
And
what
it's
it's
been a
about.
good one.
And I mean, so we still have time, so we can go back to the topic,
Oh yeah, go
which,
for it.
here we go. You talk about mental health and you do a good bit of programs for mental health as well as homelessness. So why don't we talk
Yes,
about that a
ma'am.
little bit?
I keep absolutely none of my profit. There's a slight portion every so often when we get like really low on stuff that we'll like use some of the profit, but it goes for like going back into itself. So like maybe marketing or making more shirts and stuff like that. But I keep none of it. All of it goes to either a church or this charity Name. Name, I can never say the name right, but it works for mental health. And then the church is a church. Um, and the homeless project that I'm working on is my granddad, he left my mom and her siblings land, and she stepped up and she's taking over the land and she's building on it. So I didn't have this idea for years and she's okaying it, but we're gonna get an apartment building. And I say this openly because I always want somebody to take this idea. We're building apartments, and my goal is to let homeless people or people who just don't have it right now stay there. And the goal is you can stay here 6 months. Within 6 months, we're supplying food and clothes. And I want to supply like some kind of rehab center to help with drug addiction, whatever we can do. But the goal is to help you get on your feet. So I feel like 6 months is a good amount of time. We help you get a job, and you're just saving. You're saving. We're helping you as much as we can. I want to get the clothes donated, and I want to do all of that stuff to fully be able to help people. Because and it all started from this man. I got an idea a few years ago. Um, I don't remember how I got that idea, but I just took like I got a bag of chips, some water bottles, and passed it out in this neighborhood. And this dude told me, he was like, it took one mess up for me to become. I forget how he said it. It was like it took one mess up for me to become homeless. All I need is one good thing to happen, and I won't be. And I figured like if these people, if a lot of people had like the slightest little bit of help, it could change so much. My ex last year, um, when the stimulus hit, she got that stimulus and flipped it and made her own business from it. And she got one stimulus, one chance. Instead of blowing the money, she put it into herself. She invested, made her business successful. And it's no bad blood. So like I'm really happy for her. Like it's a whole
Yeah.
lot of love. Like I really am like proud of that she did that. But I'm saying like it always is one thing. So I really want to get this set up and kind of help as much as I can because and I want to do it here. I want to do it in many places I can. That's why I always say I want people to steal the idea. But here, we didn't used to have a really bad homeless problem, at least not that I've seen, but it's growing right like
Yeah.
rapid, really bad. Like our downtown it's like it has elevated a lot. Greenville is really on a come up. It's a lot better than what it was when I was growing up. But there's a lot of people just, sleep and asking for money and stuff. And it wasn't you didn't used to be like that. So anything I can do to help, I want to. So we're nonprofit pretty much.
I know exactly what you're saying. There was a old Sheraton hotel in Arlington Heights that this was 15 years ago, I guess, or maybe 12. And it was out of business. And the lottery was like 300 million, some kind of crazy amount. And my husband and I are like, if we win the lottery, we'll buy that damn building and we'll turn it into some kind of shelter for people, and that you can get a job inside there working in the kitchen, to start you out, to get you cleaned up, and make it all apartments for people that are homeless or returning vets, and that way they can have a sense of community and have mental health care and everything else.
Yeah, that
That
stuff. It's people just need the slightest thing. I remember this dude. He kept on saying he was home. I don't know if it was like 100% true, but I know he would always say when I saw him at this gas station, he was only homeless because he couldn't get a job because he was homeless, and it was a cycle. He can't get food or nothing like that because he doesn't have a job. He can't get a job because he doesn't have a home, and it was just like it makes sense.
Mhm. And people don't
So
understand.
shuttle buses, whatever we can do, I want to help.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the thing. People don't understand the cycle, that one small thing. And here's here's a bigger thing, you know, because of the way our healthcare system is set up in this country, and I don't want to get political, but the way the healthcare system is set up in this country, if you have a major heart procedure, you can lose everything. I mean, when my husband had fortunately at the time he was on Medicare, but he went into the hospital. He was there for a couple of days before they did the surgery because they did not want to, they wanted to make sure he was hydrated and everything before they went and did a cardiac bypass surgery. He was in the hospital for 10 days. With the surgery and everything else, it was $174,000. Now, that being said, Medicare reduced the bill down to $17,000. Now, if that were you going into the hospital with regular insurance, your 20% copay most likely would have been about $40,000, which I know it's off, but I'm just guessing. That's about right. So about $17,000. Who's got $17,000 laying around? Who?
It's just so crazy the stuff that they do, because I do not take this lightly. I got so lucky for them. They cleared my student loans. But like, I know people that they're working jobs where they're not making nearly enough to pay back like $100,000 loan. And it's just like that hovers over their head and shuts them down a lot of opportunities. And it's I don't know, it's like a lot of stuff is just set like from the jump, set out to get you. So
Well,
the people are, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I've seen a lot of people kind of I just have a friend of mine, well, this lady I went to church with, well, I say she's a friend. She just um she's almost debt free. She's 3 months away from being debt free. I'm like, that's a big thing. I'm happy for you. 'Cause my hospital bills are ridiculous.
I mean, that's the thing. One hospital bill could ruin you financially. And, you know, when I look back and I know inflation, they'll say, oh, inflation hasn't been that bad. When I lived in Indiana, we had a 4-bedroom house we rented, or no, 3-bedroom house we rented with a basement and 2.5 or a bath and a half. And we paid $475. You couldn't find that now. A studio
I didn't get
apartment.
an apartment like that.
I live in a small town, and I was looking at apartments just for giggles and grins because eventually I'm going to sell my house, and I might not, because it's $850 for a studio apartment in the middle of nowhere. And I'm just like,
Yeah,
how do you,
I have like one of the a 2 bedroom here. I have a two bedroom here, and they're pushing it to like 1,200 or something a month, and that's like cheap here.
but then, and then you got, when I look at McDonald's, and this goes back to that. So in 1984, I'm making $3.25 working at McDonald's. Our McDonald's has now got a sign up saying $16, up to $16 an hour. Okay, well, that's great. But what happens is, unfortunately, is as the wages go up, everything else goes up. And it's just, it goes back to what you were saying about the cycle. It's a cycle that, oh, okay, so we're going to give you a raise on your disability, or we're going to give you, because this was for my husband, we're going to give you a raise for your disability. Guess what? Medicare is going up. Oh, but besides Medicare going up, basically to take that, your prescription drug plan is going to go up and your supplemental is going to go up. And nobody ever thinks about that. So that $20 you may have gotten has now been added 3 different places. So you're ending up with negative.
I just had this conversation with a podcast, I would say like 2 weeks ago, where we were talking about, because I went to school to be a teacher, so I was a teacher and then I was a CNA, and I worked both jobs at the same time. Both of those jobs cost not a lot, but they cost a good bit to get into, and then you're not really making a whole lot. So we were talking about jobs that should get raises, and I said basically what she said: if they get raises, they should only get raises if like everything else around them isn't going up. Because if you get this $5 raise, but it costs $5 to get a gallon of milk, you're really not, you stand in the exact location you was at. So she was talking about jobs that should go up, and she said minimum wage should go up. So like fast food workers should get a higher pay raise before CNAs, this, that, and this, because CNAs, they're not doing this and they're not doing that. And I'm like, well, you go out there and wipe a butt for $12 an hour all day, changing, like dealing with blood and stuff like that. All these like ridiculously gross things that you wouldn't think to do, you go do that for a low wage and then not be able to pay this and pay that.
Yeah.
And just tell me how you feel, because I'm not bagging on anybody working at McDonald's and stuff like that, but it's a different level of responsibility and focus that you have to put into
Right.
being a CNA. Which it sounds bad, 'cause
No.
I'm really not trying to step on anybody at McDonald's, but like CNA was like that that showed me so much.
Well,
That showed me so much.
not to mention the abuse of the patient or the abuse of the family members that you may have to deal with if they don't think you're doing the care properly. So there's a lot of
Exactly.
different aspects. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not busting anybody's balls about McDonald's, but I'm going to say it anyway. When I worked at McDonald's, drive-through was brand new. You didn't have an automated drink dispenser. You didn't have all the automation. You had to do everything by yourself. And I was making $3.25 an hour. Now the fry basket, and I had burns on my arms at the time from the fry basket. Now the fry basket raises itself up, the drinks drop down, and they're making a hell of a lot more money than I am, or was.
By pressing buttons. And I mean, hey, you doing your thing, that's fine. But like, why are they're making, like, my CNA job paid $12.50 an hour. McDonald's, they're making almost 17. Chick-fil-A people are making about 17, 18.
Taco Bell's got a whole other idea though. Taco Bell is actually thinking about doing automated drive-thrus where you type in everything on your phone and it's delivered to you through a tube. So,
and you know what? They'll still come out making a whole lot more. And it's crazy because they don't even understand the system where it's like, okay, say we give you this dollar raise and this McDouble is going to get taxed by what, 20 cents or whatever, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it adds up. And then all this stuff is slowly going up where it's just like, there's really, on paper, you're making more, but you're not making more. And we had this whole conversation and she said she just didn't see it. She just did not see it. And I'm not trying to change nobody's perspective.
no,
you do you.
No, and I get what you're saying. I mean, like, you know, I've gone to Aldi because Aldi used to they have decent gluten-free bread and they've always been pretty reasonable. And I haven't been to Aldi in about a year. And last time I bought it because I hadn't eaten bread. So I bought a loaf of gluten-free bread over at Walmart because that's the only store we have in the town. And it was $4 something. Okay. I go to Aldi today and that bread that was $3 something a year ago is now suddenly $5 something. And I'm like, so if I want to eat healthy, if I want a loaf of bread and I want a tub of salad, that's $10.
It's really a system that is physical. And it's like the simplest stuff be people going against you. Us going to Nashville, I Airbnb'd in the whole apartment since it was all three of us. I wanted us to have space, but also be together because I didn't want us to get a room that my mom be far away in a room by herself. So I wanted in a whole apartment for all of us to be together. So I booked it, I paid for it, and then they messaged me and took $500 out of my account and said, this is a security deposit. And I'm like, well, that's something you should have said because that's nowhere on the thing. Where they're like, well, if you go to our website and you go to this and go to this and go to this, then you'll see. And I'm like, well, I don't just, peruse websites for fun to know that information. So I'm like, okay, fine, because it's security deposit, I'll get it back. So then they stop it and say that they have to call. I had to set up a call, and they needed me to send a picture of me holding my license. Okay. So I have to take a selfie holding my license. I send it to them, do what they want. Okay. So then they say that the payment isn't good. Why is the payment not good? Because you took it, so it was good enough for you to take. Well, they didn't like that it was on a Cash App card. I don't like payments coming off of my debit, like my actual bank card, because I can't just turn it on and off. Cash App, I can turn it on and off. So they don't like that it was a prepaid card. So I'm like, okay, well, can you refund it? I'll put it on this card and then y'all can take it from that. She says, no, they have to cancel the room, issue a refund, which will take 7 days. And if I want the room, which was 2 days away, I have to spend the exact amount of money again, security deposit and the actual fee, again from my account.
Wow. So what'd you do?
Why?
Yeah.
I just told them to refund me the room. I found the quickest room I could, and the only thing they had available was a Motel 6. So I got 2 rooms at a Motel 6. I had listened to my mom complain about it the entire time. I didn't think it was awful, but she found she's a nitpicker. She found problems with this, that, and this, but we made it do. I got my refund like 3 days after we got back. I couldn't fight it. I when there's that many things against me, I'm not gonna just keep on taking it.
No.
I am a certified quitter. I am not a loser. I am a quitter. And I did not lose the situation. I got myself out of it.
At least you're clear about it. At least you are
Uh-huh.
clear about it. So, let's go back to your better two moment. When you were talking, when we were setting this up, you were talking about you kind of had a breakdown when your ex. Was that after she had the abortion, or is this other ex?
This is the other ex. The first one, the abortion, it drove me, the first ex, that drove me into like, I want to drink, I want to try weed, I want to try pills, I want to try all this stuff that everybody around me was trying. And then I seen like, bro, I'm just escaping my reality. I'm just running from stuff. I'm not getting anywhere because at that point I'm in college. So it's like I need to get serious about where I want to be in life. My second ex, I noticed that I was getting mad, even while working with John, everything going on in my life, and now I'm trying to transition into making music and all this stuff a career. I'm noticing like I'm getting mad. I have all these little mess ups. So I have all this built up energy, and I can't just talk like, oh, I'm sad, and I'm putting it in music, but it's not enough. So I noticed I'm just making her my punching bag, and I'm just putting everything on her. And I'm also bottling it up, but I'm not noticing that I'm leaking and spilling over into how I'm treating her. So after a while, I'm so bottled up. I just go off on her full power, just fully release it all. And then I'm like, that was so uncalled for. And I just hung up the phone. And I'm one like I talk about it in music, so I can openly talk about it. I've always struggled with like suicidal thoughts and stuff. So at that point, I'm at a low. I really felt like I'm an awful person. I treated her like this. I understand why people around me are the way they are because I'm treating people poorly. So I'm like, the only way I can make up for it is just to take myself out because I'm at a low, and I couldn't talk to her no more. I was too embarrassed to talk to her. I had to run away from it. So I didn't go through. Well, I tried. It was a whole thing, an attempt, and I kept going. I got better. And when she reached out and I reached out and we could have talked it through, I was just so embarrassed that I just ran into another relationship. And I'm always in the middle of like where I want to be because I love Kay to death. It's been over a year now with us. So I'm happy here. But on another hand, I could have actually gave this relationship with my ex a try and, got through it and, didn't be a didn't be a coward about it and, actually followed through and like tried to make things up, tried to apologize. I just felt like I was so far in the negative. I just had to open a whole new bank account. So that's what I did. And I took all those things that I learned from the past two relationships and stuff like that, and I try to really implement it to the best of my ability now with Kay. So like my first relationship, I couldn't talk about being sad. Now I'm not gonna open up, but like I want to say, hey, I'm feeling this way with her, but like I'll listen because I know how it feels. And I know if I'm feeling some kind of way, I need to leave the situation or find another outlet because I can't just be sitting here making her feel small just because I had a bad day. So, and there's other little things too, but at the same time, I still struggle with the fact that my ex was actually a good person. She didn't do anything to me, yet I treated her bad. And what hurts the most is it's not really anything I can do that's going to change the fact that her memory of me is I'm a bad guy. So I can like force myself in all these charities. I can do all this stuff I can try to do with, helping people. But at the end of the day, I'm just a bad guy to her. That's all she's going to remember. So like if somebody ever talks about me like, hey, CerVon's a stand-up guy. I like CerVon. She's like, well, you don't know CerVon. And the fact that that's out there in people's mind, it bothers me, it haunts me. And it's nothing I can really do about it. So I just try to be better with Kay and be better with other situations in my life.
How do you know that she won't forgive you? And I'm not saying that you'll ever know, but what my point is, you know, this playing the therapist here, and I'm not licensed, but the thing is, in order to move past it for you, you're going to have to forgive yourself. And hopefully she will forgive you to move past it. The thing about it is, whether you're a good guy or a bad guy, at that moment, you were going through something. And sometimes maybe that was a lesson she needed to learn, because maybe there's somebody on her horizon that she needs to see before he gets there, that she really needs
It's
to see
also a
when he
middle ground.
steps
Like,
up.
like if I had a time machine, would I go back? And I think I'm happy enough with Kay now. I know I'm happy enough with Kay now. I know like that's not anything I really want, like I want to do. But the last time I talked to her, I did apologize. I did try to, and it was fine. It was like a good like ending conversation. But at the same time, I don't know if that was real or not. It could have been just like, hey, he reached out. He's trying to apologize. It's whatever. I don't want, because like I'm still close, like I'm still cool with her family. Her grandma, me and her friends on Facebook. She Facebook video chats me every so often. Her brother called me a couple of weeks, like a couple of months ago, and her cousins, a lot of her family are still active in my life and really active and helping me with my music and stuff like that. But I'm still that guy that treated their sister or their daughter, granddaughter, or whoever like this. And that's information that's out there. And that's why like I can't, especially after that, I was like, yo, I'm finna drink, I'm finna go do this. I can't do that because I'm never gonna recover from it. And I know what you're saying, like I have to forgive myself and stuff like that. But I try to channel it into motivation, where it's just like those like cart like it's I see it on Family Guy a bunch, where like they're trying to work out, so they'll like hold a donut over their head,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're running for. Mine is the fact that I have done all this. I have to chase music and whatever I'm doing. I have to run at it so hard so I can get somewhere where I can kind of make other people's lives better and just kind of take the negative that I did with her and try to make it positive for somebody. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the goal. So like I know how I felt in that situation. I know how I felt in those different surrounding situations. So I put it in my music. I talk about it that way. And that's like this guy Hobo Johnson, a guy I'm a really big fan of. Me and him, he's helping me with my album. And that's what I want the general topic to be. I want it to be like, if you're not feeling okay, if you feel alone, which sounds really pretentious and really cliche, but like if you feel alone or you feel like you have this going on or something like that, and you just want to hear somebody talk or you need to get something out, I made the lyrics like D&D. I made the lyrics to D&D specifically so if you feel low, you can say it and your speech words of affirmation. I not is that the word affirmation?
Affirmation,
You're
yeah.
saying these positive things outwardly so you can come. I'm religious too, so you can cover yourself and feel better. Cause like I know like a lot of people say if you say it over and over, you might believe it. So in that song, I say I'm not depressed. I won't have these thoughts again. And the other songs in the album, I'm trying to make it where it's just like you can sing along so you can feel like you're talking to somebody, or you can just hear me and kind of connect with it somewhere in there. I really want it to be kind of an interactive thing, but I can't like, have everybody on it, but I want it to be where you can be included and not feel these kind of ways. So like how I treated her, I put that in the music so I can say I did this and then come back and say I felt like this. So you can kind of trial and error where I was and you can kind of stay away from it. So that's really why it's been like taking me so long to do anything. Like I've been putting out songs, these are like super old songs, like D&D is from last year. I'm really trying to dial in and kind of help how I can. I don't know. I'm trying to cover the board with mental health and kind of make something people can connect with. I don't know. I'm talking in circles.
No, you're fine. And here's the thing. You want people to connect with your music, and if they can listen and get something out of it, it's important. I was going to say, you know, you were talking about your current relationship. My husband at a certain point was told, you know, we were both told, actually I was told before him, you're on borrowed time. And he had already had
Mm-hmm.
depressive issues. And we had already implemented this beforehand, but because his depression started to get worse, and sometimes he didn't want to talk about it. This is going to sound really stupid, and people are going to be like, oh my gosh. We got to the point, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, that if one of us was having a down day and we didn't want to talk about it, we had this little blue and white panda, and it would sit on the kitchen table. And if one of us didn't, we were down, but we didn't feel like talking about it, we would put the panda over by the person. And it was like, I'm blue panda today. And eventually we would talk about it, but it was setting the tone that, look, I'm not in a good headspace. I'm having a hard time. And it would give him a pass because, you know, he wasn't one of those people at first to be open with his feelings. So it took him a while to get there, but he did open up to me most of the time. But when you're dealing with the internal of, I'm counting the days before I die, and with COVID, he didn't die of COVID, but because of COVID, he'd watch the news and he would just bawl his eyes out because there was all this death. And the blue panda was a way of him being able to say something before he actually needed to say something. So what I'm getting at is, if you're having a moment, find something to do with your girlfriend where you have some kind of touchstone that she can see that, okay, you're having a time. Let's step back. And, you know, it's like when somebody gets mad. I mean, I've had this conversation before because he was legally blind, and there would be times when he'd be in the kitchen cooking. Cause yeah, even though he was legally blind, he loved to cook. I'm not going to take that away from him. And he's having a time, and he's like, GDMF. And I go in the kitchen and I'd be like, are you okay? Is your name MF? Now, as a younger woman, I most likely would have went back at it. As an older woman, I'm like, walk out the room, wait about 45 minutes, half hour, come back in and say, hey, you okay? Yeah, I wasn't mad at you. I'm sorry I said that. I think that's something that we don't think about. When we get caught up with somebody else's reaction, we take it to heart when it's not really about us. And that's kind of what I was saying to you about the girlfriend, because she may not remember that anymore. She may look back now and go, you know, I'm kind of glad that happened because it made me aware of somebody else. Because whether you realize this or not, we do repeat patterns in our life, and we get some of the same people in our life. And so you may have helped her from picking out somebody that could do some bad harm to her mentally.
Yeah, I want to be a good memory, and I just hate the fact that I can't be. But if I can help, then that'll be good. So if I help her in the next one, that's still good. Me and Kay, our blue panda would be. We say that we watched this comedian. He told a joke about how when he was in jail, they had this phrase that they would use when it was like something's about to happen. You don't really know what's about to happen. So we say Mexicans got on boots.
Okay.
I don't know, like, you have to hear the joke. It sounds bad, like off the
But no,
bar.
as long as you got something, though, as long as you have something, and that's what I'm getting at. So before we end this, let's talk a little bit about your music. So D&D, I listened to D&D. I thought that was really good. I actually highlighted a couple of songs that I liked. D&D again and Cedar Falls, I really liked them a lot. And I did listen to Miss Universe, and I could tell that there was a little tension in that one. And Broken People. I mean, your sound, it's not what I was expecting when I just listened to him recently, and you have some good songs. You really do.
I appreciate it.
And, you know, like I said, when I saw John Oates, I'm like, is this really John Oates, or is this some other dude? Well, apparently, just like you.
Everybody kept thinking that it was a sample, and I was like, I understood. Like, I wasn't trying to fight it all, but now that like we have a few pictures together, I really keep pushing them because it's like, no, believe me, it's really him.
So, I mean, are you planning on collaborating with him more?
We've talked about a few things, and with me making more music now, because I haven't had like I've been putting out new stuff, but I haven't really recorded since like earlier this year. So now that I'm getting back in, we've talked about ideas. So hopefully, and he has introduced me to a bunch of new people that I want to work with and I plan to work with. So I'm hoping so. The song we have next, that we talked about recording next, I really hope that he goes through with it, because like we talked about it and we both said we like the idea. So hopefully we have another one.
Then do it. And here's the thing I'm going to tell you, if the man is willing to work with you like this, don't worry so much. Get out of your head about, oh, he's just a guy like you.
He said how we look at celebrities,
I know.
like, because like I was like, you make my dreams come true in these songs. I knew the name and stuff like that. So it's just meeting him, and then he's shorter than me, and just seeing like he's a real, like, person right here. It's just it's a really good feeling that makes you feel good. It was a high and low. It's like, oh my God, it's him. But it's also like, hey, I'm right here beside him. It's a bunch of different emotions. So I've met him a few times now. I've talked to him a ton of times now. So I'm getting better with it. So hopefully next time I might even be able to drop the Mister and just call him John.
Celebrity came, and I've talked about this before, but I'm going to say it anyway. Celebrity came to me when it was after a concert. I was in New Orleans, and this band was sitting at a bar outside. New Orleans bars tend to be open and outside. And the bodyguard was there, and there was all these teenage girls, and they were screaming. And my friends were part of that group. And I went across the street because I'm like, I'm over this. And I'm looking in one of the shop windows, and there's a chain link fence on it. And like I said, the girls are screaming, and the band just wants to have a nice evening and relax and everything. And I remember the bodyguard sitting there screaming, "They're people, not animals." And I'm looking in this fence, and at the knickknacks that are in the window. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually a very true statement. They are people. And I'm looking in this cage. And so that moment kind of summed up celebrity for me in a big way, because it's like they are just people with really cool jobs that have some money sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and they get to do what they love. So, why we are in awe of them, because they create things for us and make us happy. But the truth of the matter is they have problems like us. It may be a different caliber of problem, but they can have mental health issues. They go to the grocery store sometimes, and sometimes they have other people do it. But in general, they have all the same things we do. They go to the bathroom just like us. I mean, we don't look at
And I know
those
because
things.
John told me, he really put me on. Because I pitched him an idea for a music video for D&D, and it was like I was really just making a bunch of jokes, and I was like, this would be funny, this would be funny. And he was like, this is a serious song. This is a serious problem that a lot of people go through. I don't think we should make jokes. And it was so real. And I wanted to make a joke about that, but I was just like, you're right, Mr. John. But no, I had a whole idea. I wanted to start the video off with like a skit, like, okay, we're coming here to record the video, and I was gonna have a blonde wig on, and I was gonna say, okay, so I'm Hall. And I had a whole
Harsh, dude.
idea for that.
That is harsh.
I, I wanted to come in with a blonde wig, and when we like get started, I wanted to be like, "What are you doing?" And be like, "I'm Hall," and just leave it at that.
Oh, and how kind. So he just said it was, but that part of it, what did he say about that?
I didn't even get the pitch.
Okay.
That one. I was saving that one for last because I knew that would have been a little weird, a little touchy. So I kind of steered a little away from it. So I was telling him the other jokes, and he was like, "Oh, okay." And then when I was getting up to it, he was like, "But it's also a really serious song." So he like brought it down to earth, like, "Okay, calm down." And I was like, "I'm glad I didn't start off with that joke."
Yeah. It's a joke that's better left unsaid, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, you know, looking at what you've gone through, and the better two thing is all about, I know your answer is, if you could go back and change how you acted, you would do it. So really, your better two is kind of multi-layered because that experience made you dabble in things, and then you ended up getting out of those things because you realized you didn't need that escape. So it's a really weird better two moment, because I know the better two is, I wish I wouldn't have acted like that, as far as with the ex. But then the other better two is, I'm kind of glad I had that experience because it taught me that I don't need that stuff and it's not healthy for me. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. I'm glad. I wouldn't go back and change anything because for one, I wouldn't have a few of the songs that I have out now, and I'm happy with those songs. And I wouldn't have K. I think nothing even against my ex. I think me and Kay just kind of we really fit each other better. So I guess I just have to, sacrifice. I just have to keep that bad memory in her mind. So I say I picked the right choice, I guess.
I would say K is a better choice because K's got your back, it seems like, and that's a good thing,
Yeah, she does, and it is.
especially in this world and in this life. So if there's anything you want to tell my audience before I sign off, what would it be?
Um,
And if you don't have
I
some,
should
it's
have
okay
wrote
too.
something down. I guess just like publicity. Follow me on Instagram. I have an awful Instagram name, but follow me on it.
Well, what is it?
I hate saying it. It's Sex Monkey Limo Driver.
Okay, before we end now, I have to go. Why is it Sex Monkey Limo Driver? Where did that come from?
Because I made Instagram when I was 13, and I just never really paid attention to the names. Like when I was doing stand up, it was like something wacky, and I wasn't really caring about what I was putting up there. And then when it got serious, I got verified, and it wasn't no
Oh.
going back. They wouldn't let me change it. So like I literally message them all the time asking to change it, and they never respond. So I'm stuck with it.
Because I
So
was
I'm
gonna
Sex
say,
Monkey Limo Driver.
I understand you can change it, and then you tell me you can't. It's like, oh, okay. No, boy, I'm
I have
sorry.
tried to change it so many times. I got to meet Carrie Underwood, and I was trying to tell her, I wanted to tell her, like, hey, follow me on Instagram. But it was just like, nah, it's fine.
It's memorable. It's memorable. Oh boy, wait till I tag you. Wait till I tag you in an Instagram.
That's what John said. He was like, just be okay with it, because it's the name. A lot of people, it'll stick with people.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I guess.
And think about the marketing you could do.
See, I'm okay with it now because I overshot it, because at first I was like, okay, I'm coming from stand up. People know me from that. They're not gonna take me serious in music. But luckily, I made music that was so dark that they just kind of overlooked the name, because it was like that was a very depressing song. Sex Monkey Limo Driver. I can't laugh after listening to that. So I kind of balanced it out. So yeah, but I'm stuck with it.
And you can also find him at betcha.in/CerVon Campbell. CerVon. What did I do? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You got there. You got there.
I said I was going to slaughter it when we were off air, and guess what? I did. So sorry about that. But
It was
anyway,
close.
anyway, guys, please follow Sex Monkey Limo Driver. As this will be I think you should have a shirt that is made up, when you get a little whole diagram and
I
everything.
have
Yeah.
one. I have one.
Why am I not surprised?
I used
Anyway,
to really rep it, but yeah, there we go.
I thank you for your time. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation between CerVon and I. It was a lot of fun doing it. And yeah, we kind of went all over the place. Even he admits that we kind of got off topic. Well, if you've listened to most of the podcast, it just kind of goes, just like if we were sitting at a coffee shop. Who would have thought we were to come up with a conversation about a cartoon character, or the fact that we were talking about life in general and the economy and stuff. Those things you just don't think we're going to come up, but they do. So if you really like the podcast, send me a comment. Let me know. Send me a review. If you want to be on the show, Donna at better2podcast.com. You can hit me up on Spotify. You can, there's Spotify, Apple, tell your friends how good the podcast is if you really like it. I have one friend, Danny, who, yes, I gave a shout out to, who actually listens for her evening walks. And, she'll give me a critique or whatever. And then I have another person that I know, Bina, who she listens to it in the evenings. So if you really like it, whatever time of day you're listening to it, I hope you're enjoying it and I hope you get something from it. I know that this is a wild format because you never know what you're going to get. But that's part of the beauty of this podcast, I think, is because it changes up all the time. And, I don't want to do a hard sell here, but if you're on, you can go to Patreon and you can become a Patreon member. And if you're on Patreon, the $5 tier, which is a cup of coffee, which helps support the podcast, and there is some expense, even though I'm a one-woman show, there is some expense to do this. But with that cup of coffee, that cost of the cup of coffee, I can, give you a shout out. And it's an awesome thing. And Cammy's going to give you a shout out now too. Because if you heard a little dog bark, that's Cammy Pup. But, I would say any support you can give, even if it's telling other people about the podcast, it's greatly appreciated. It really is. So I hope you guys have a wonderful evening or a wonderful day or even a wonderful week. And if you enjoy the show, let me know. So take care, guys, and catch you next time. Bye.